You're watching PIX on Politics Daily with Dan Mannarino.
Hey everybody, welcome to PIX on Politics Daily. I'm Dan Mannarino, and it is Tuesday morning. It's February 3rd. Hopefully everybody is still thawing out. I know, like, today we're in the 20s, almost the 30s, right? So we are covering the story of the day today, which I know is a lot of the trash buildup, right? Our Greg Mocker has been out and about taking a look at a lot of the trash that the sanitation department is now admitting is a little behind because they've been doing some snow removal, right? So they're asking for patience as they get some of this trash off the streets. Just so you heads up for you, coming up on Friday, PIX on Politics, sitting down with the new DOT Commissioner, Mike Flynn. We're going to talk to him about a lot of things, including Gateway Tunnel and the court case that's going to hopefully get that money restored, what Mikey Sherrill would like there. And we're also going to be talking one-on-one with James Solomon, the mayor of Jersey City, about what's happening with ICE in his city. I don't know if you saw the video just yesterday during these ICE raids, or it was 2 days ago, these ICE raids, where one of the city council members confronted ICE and said, "Let's see the warrant." And he said, "We don't need to show you a warrant, bro." And so what's he doing to step up efforts now to fight against ICE? He has some new proposals that he's going to talk about on Friday. In the meantime, we've been covering all these races, right? We're talking about Mike Lawler yesterday and the race for NY17. And there's a lot of races, you know, not only on the congressional level, but down ballot as well, within the state assembly, the state senate, city council. All these races with, you thought maybe this was going to be an off year. No. So let's talk about what's happening in the state assembly, right? Because we're talking a lot about what's happening in Albany. And if you've been joining us lately and watching, the mayor, Zoran Mamdani, really needs Albany to get some of what he wants done, right? He wants to raise taxes for the corporate wealth tax, as well as the wealthy, to pay for some of his agenda, but he needs Albany on board. So some of these seats are really important. So one of them is for the Assembly District 34, and that's in Queens. And running for that seat is Brian Romero, and he is joining me right now. So Brian, good to see you.
Good to see you, Dan. Thank you for having me.
Let me talk about first and foremost why. You were a former staffer for Assemblymember Jessica Gonzalez Rojas, right?
Yes.
She is now running for a state senate against Jessica Ramos,
That's
and
right.
you are now running for her seat. Why'd you feel that this was the move for you?
Yeah, so I was born in a basement apartment in East Elmhurst, in the community. I know the struggle of working class families and immigrant families because I've lived those experiences myself. At some point in my life, because my mom was a single mom and had 3 children, we were homeless for a year. I slept on my aunt's couch for about a year, and that really disrupted my academic performance. I was falling asleep in class, wasn't really eating much, was hard to sleep. And it's a reality that so many, unfortunately, over 100,000 students experience in New York City, where they are going to school but homeless. And so whether it's that or being part of an immigrant family, and in a community where ICE is increasingly coming to our streets and kidnapping our neighbors, right? I'm in these chats all day long where folks are flagging, there's been ICE sightings, someone was grabbed, and there's rapid response happening. We're in a time where that, coupled with the fact that the Trump White House is putting forward really disastrous cuts, right? Billions of dollars of cuts to New York State. All these things together, I think it is absolutely critical that we send the most prepared individuals with values to match to Albany, who will be ready on day one to fight for our immigrant communities, for our LGBTQ communities, and for our working class neighbors, and deliver on an affordability agenda that we saw elected Mayor Mamdani. I believe that I'm that candidate, and that's why I'm running.
All right, so let's talk about, Brian, break that down into kind of some subcategories and begin with affordability. Because Zoran Mamdani really needs Albany to help him pass some of his agenda. And Governor Hochul has kind of been pretty adamant. Every time I talk to her, she says, no, I'm not raising taxes. I don't need it. We have the revenue from Wall Street. They had a good year. We have billions of dollars that we could send. And I went to the mayor and said, if you could take that money that she's offering you, is that an answer? And he said, well, we need long-term solutions, and that's why he wants to raise taxes. So if you were to win, how would you vote on some of these issues of raising taxes?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with Mayor Mamdani. And in 2021, Governor Cuomo actually then said that he would not be raising taxes. And yet, in the end, we were successful in increasing the progressive income tax. We got the excluded workers fund. So we have had governors in the past say no to increasing taxes and been successful. And I think that that's really important for New Yorkers to remember. It's also important for New Yorkers, the governor and the legislature, to remember that several of these proposals are incredibly popular amongst New Yorkers, right? This isn't just far left radical ideas. These are popular ideas from the majority of New Yorkers.
Not amongst the wealthy.
Not amongst the wealthy, but
Right.
you know, those folks are staying here perfectly fine.
Mhm.
And we only are seeing the number of millionaires and billionaires increase in our
Yeah.
state, while Black and brown New Yorkers and poor folks are leaving our state en masse. That has a serious impact on our ability to keep our congressional seats. So I agree with Mayor Mamdani. We worked together in 2021 to
Mhm.
pass the progressive income tax. I think it is absolutely necessary for us to pass an increase in the corporate tax, to have a stock transfer tax, and to also, again, raising progressive income tax on the top 5% earners. On top of Mayor Mamdani's, one of his proposals is the City Fair Share Act. So we have various proposals. And the reality is we're saying that we want to make the rich pay their fair share, right? Their fair share
Mhm.
to fund our basic services.
So how would you go about, I guess, convincing more moderate Democrats and Republicans who are adamant and the governor who would have to sign it? How would you convince all of them?
I think this is very simple. We either increase our revenue sources to ensure that we could fund basic services like housing,
Mhm.
like healthcare, like universal childcare, which we are all very excited for. I'm very proud to have worked with Assemblymember Gonzalez Rojas on that in my time in the legislature. We are either going to fund those things to ensure that New Yorkers can stay in their neighborhoods and in their communities, and keep New Yorkers here and increase the population here so we could keep our congressional seats and therefore the resources that come from the federal government from it. Or we will continue the status quo, which means we'll see more New Yorkers leave our state and the resources decrease in our state, and our representation
But
in
to push
Congress.
back on that, the other argument is that the wealthy will leave the state. So you're saying you're worried that the other folks might leave.
Yeah.
And the governor's saying, well, I don't want to take the risk because I don't want to lose the wealthy either who are threatening to leave.
So this is a common myth. And it's been disproven many times by the Fiscal Policy Institute. Capital flight is not a thing.
Okay.
Right? During COVID, again, we raised the progressive income tax, and millionaires and billionaires did not leave en masse. We saw more of them than ever, right? We have seen these Trump tax cuts benefit them by billions of dollars. They are not going anywhere. They know that, and we know that.
Yeah.
I think what we need to say is the folks who are leaving here, our state, are folks like the folks I grew up with in the neighborhoods of Astoria and Corona and Jackson Heights and East Elmhurst and Woodside. And that is not fair, and that is not just.
What do you think right now about the party overall, right? Because there seems to be a direction. You describe yourself as what, a Democratic
I'm
socialist?
a Democratic socialist.
Okay. So there's Democratic socialists, there's moderate Democrats, and the party seems to kind of be struggling with an identity of where they are on the spectrum. And everybody, of course, has their own. But where do you see kind of New Yorkers, as they pay very close attention to this, falling in line with where exactly you may stand?
I think that folks really need to take the last election as evidence of what New Yorkers really want. You know, I think the party as a whole is hyper-focused, and with reason, on taking back the House. And I respect that. I understand that from a strategic standpoint. And simply more Democrats does not mean better Democrats. And we are in a time when ICE are killing civilians, right? 9 or 10 at this point, where they are kidnapping folks, whether they have status or don't have status, where millionaires and billionaires are even more wealthy and getting wealthier as folks are becoming unhoused, can't afford their groceries, can't afford their childcare, and are having to go to other states because they can't stay here anymore. This is a real crisis, and it's a crisis of politics, right? We are either going to serve working class folks and New Yorkers, stand for them, stand with them, protect them from ICE. What we're really talking about is protecting civilians, which is our number one responsibility in government, right? It's public safety. We talk about public safety all the time. ICE has become a public safety issue, right? They're killing civilians. We cannot wait for them to come and do that in New York to then act. We must act now. We have to fully support the abolition of ICE, the dismantling of that agency, and pass legislation like New York for All, and fully fund things like access to representation to ensure that folks have legal services. We cannot allow this state, which has the Statue of Liberty in its harbor, to collaborate with ICE and the Trump administration. We have to take a stand. We must protect New Yorkers.
So what could you do on the assembly level to fight against ICE?
So much. Yeah. So number one, while the governor did make that announcement, and it is welcome news that she is moving in the direction of protecting New Yorkers from ICE.
Yeah.
I fully believe, as do so many, that the New York for All Act, as it is drafted, must be what is actually in the enacted budget in the end.
Okay.
Right? We cannot do half measures when it comes to protecting civilians. As I said, access to representation is critical. Assemblymember Catalina Cruz, who I'm very lucky and fortunate to have as a supporter in this race, carries that legislation. And we know that when individuals go into deportation proceedings, if they have representation, the outcomes are much more favorable, deportations decrease, right? So we have to fully fund that $175 million in our state. Again, if we tax the wealthy, if we make them pay their fair share, we will have the resources for this. We also have legislation like the MELT Act, carried by Assemblymember Tony Simone, who is also supporting me in my race. No public servant wears masks when they're engaging in their operations, right? I certainly don't when I'm in the halls of Albany. I don't know anybody that does beyond health issues, but they should not be hiding their identity, right? So the MELT Act is important as well. It must be passed. And then there's other bills as well that I would support, like Dignity Not Detention, to ensure that we are not building detention centers within our jails or prisons. That's also critical. So we have no shortage of options.
Let me talk to you about kind of where you see things going with the party, because it's interesting. We're about to have the Democratic convention.
Correct.
And there's Governor Hochul and her lieutenant governor, Antonio Delgado, who potentially are both going to be at the ballot. Are you supporting one over the other?
I am focusing on my race and ensuring that I'm talking to my neighbors.
Oh, this is such a political answer, Brian. But there's two Democrats, and as you describe your path, who are you looking at as the leader to kind of align with what you're looking for?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really important to go talking to my neighbors about who they're paying attention to. What I will tell you, what is really important to me, is that my neighbors are saying that they want Democrats and leadership that's going to protect them from being kidnapped, who will fight for a New York State where they're not afraid to go to school or work or drop off their kids or go to after school. That is the kind of leadership that we need.
So is that Kathy Hochul or Antonio Delgado?
I think we will have to see what the state committee members decide. I was a state committee member for 2 cycles. In the 36th, I was proud to have Mayor Mamdani's support in those races. I think we're at a crossroads. We must call for the abolition of ICE, full stop.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
And she hasn't done that.
She has not, and she needs to. You know, the New York Immigration Coalition last year came out with a report that said that some of the communities that are most seeing kidnappings and deportations from ICE in New York are Latino communities, like Colombians, like myself, Hondurans, Mexicans, Ecuadorians, right? It is, frankly, hypocritical to say that you stand with communities of color and immigrant communities and not do all that is within your power to protect them and protect civilians.
I'm going to push back for you in a second. And
Please.
I know this is our first time talking, so
That's okay.
But I always look for the answer here. It
Sure.
sounds like you have your mind made up. So why not say it?
Because I'm focusing on my race and because I think there is value right now with what the governor is doing.
Mm-hmm.
The budget is not done yet, right? The devil is in the details. Let's see how the process and conversation goes along. And I think that that's what all New Yorkers are looking at, right? Is she going to fully adopt New York for all, right? We're still early in this process. We're going to continue to push for the full adoption of that bill. Or is she not? Is she going to support an increase on taxes to ensure that we can mitigate the worst of the cuts from the federal government and therefore fund basic services for New Yorkers? Or will she not? Those are the two things I am personally paying attention to. I will be paying attention to closely as I approach the ballot box and decide, make my decision for governor.
Last time I want to talk about affordability goes with housing, and everybody always talks about housing and has these great ideas for housing, and then a lot of it doesn't come to fruition. Yeah. What's your idea for more affordable housing?
Yeah, this is deeply important to me. Again, I'm someone who has been homeless. It's an experience that many New Yorkers experience. It is a political choice. There's a suite of bills that exist in the state legislature that I support. The legislation carried by Assemblymember Gallagher to establish a social housing development authority, I think is absolutely where we should be going. It is really problematic that we could, and I was on a community board where we had zoning conversations come to us, and the conversation is always an imbalance. It's always the real estate developers who have more power in these conversations. It is not just, right? Whether it's a big project like, some of the several ones that have come up in Queens, it's just we end up saying, how can we get scraps out of this deal? It is not just. So that legislation would create authority to ensure they were building housing that's truly affordable, capped at 25% of someone's income, similar to what happens in NYCHA. And really works towards removing the power from the real estate lobby and industry to everyday tenants and working class people. that is where we should be going. We also funded in the New York State Legislature last year the Housing Access Voucher Program.
Mhm.
It was not funded fully at what we had asked for, right? It was funded about $50 million in a pilot, which I don't know that has actually even been carried out yet, which is really unfortunate.
Mhm.
That needs $250 million if we are serious about affordability and if we are serious about keeping New Yorkers in their homes. That is a program that the Housing Justice Coalition, as well as so many legislators, I'm sorry, in the Assembly and Senate support. So I would support that. And then very specific to the 34th, and even to my own experience, there are basement apartments that are not brought up to code across our city and state.
Mhm.
That is housing stock that is
Yeah.
available to us if we are willing to legalize accessory dwelling units. It's something that Assemblymember Gonzalez Rojas and others have fought for. Again, there was a small pilot funded in a state budget a few cycles ago. It is not enough, right? Individuals have died drowning in their apartments during Hurricane Ida. It is not just, we need to ensure that we legalize basement apartments.
All right. Brian, we're going to leave it there. It was great to have you. Good conversation.
Thank you so much for having me,
We
Dan.
got a lot of time between now and Election Day, so we'll talk to you again, okay?
All right, thank you.
All right. And by the way, we're keeping a close eye on not only this race, but a lot of the down ballot races as well. So continue joining us here daily for those conversations because they're important. I know everyone thinks about the big one, right? The mayor, governorship, and then, of course, congressional members. But these races on the local level, they really matter. So pay attention to the conversations daily. And we will see you next time, okay? Have a great day.